Guys, so we're taking a look today at this very exciting game that actually ended up being a half-point game. Those half-point games can be very frustrating if you're on the losing side, as I've definitely experienced. And this one was a real nail-biter until the end. So I wanted to take a look at this key moment here where White, I think, had a good chance to win. So right here on the left side, we have this black group that's under heavy attack. And White has to figure out a way to maybe kill this group or at least do some damage. So in the game, White sort of wedged in between here, and Black played like this. And after this sequence, Black was alive. So there was actually something simpler White could have done. So it's always good, I think, to first check about limiting the opponent's eye space. So right here, if White just cuts this way, this will be the simplest way to eliminate some of Black's eye space. And we can see that it's actually not going to be so easy for Black to make two eyes. A move like this seems the most promising, but White can just easily take an eye here. And even after a sequence like this, White can just Atari. And now we have like a bit of a life and death puzzle here. So White doesn't want to just Hane here, because then Black can easily live. So instead, the key thing is going to be to play this exchange first. So this forces Black to play here, and then White can Hane like this. Obviously, Black can't block, because that would be self-Atari. So Black just has to capture, and then White can take the eye. And so like that, the Black group will be dead. But actually, I think this move might work too, even though it's a bit more complicated. So this descent is good. This move was good, and up until here, this was all fine. But instead of turning like this, we would be better off as White just reducing Black's eye space. So how about a move like this instead? This makes it impossible for Black to live locally, and so the only way for Black to live would be to escape. So if Black blocks like this, then White can just simply totally cut Black off, and there's no way Black can live because this is a dead shape inside. Just like that. If instead Black tries something like this, then White can simply just block here. So there will be no way for Black to live. But in the game, Black was able to make this living shape, and so was ultimately able to win this game. So let's take a look from the beginning and see how this happened. So we have this very common attach and double Hane here. We don't see it as often when White already has a stone at c7, the O-Gama instead of the Kama. And the reason being that if we just play the sort of normal sequence, the corner is a little bit bigger than it is in the standard variation, where White would have a stone at c6 instead of c7. So for that reason, in this shape, a lot of times people will just invade the corner directly. Not necessarily immediately, but usually that's the move that Black is looking at, and there could be all kinds of sequences here. Maybe something like this could happen. And White would probably try and take the stone somehow. But this double Hane is still okay. However, I think that White cut here to take the stone. But this isn't so good for White, because Black gets to capture this white stone and takes the outside, and White has kind of a small corner. So instead, the standard sequence is just to Atari like this and connect. And so White can actually be pretty happy with this shape, as I was saying, since White stones are very efficient, since White played the O-Game instead of the Kama here at c7. So after this, White played this ladder breaker here. So I like the idea to play this ladder breaker, but I don't know how well it's going to work in this situation, because this ladder with this stone here at d4 isn't actually that like big or important of a ladder. It's really just about Black's like sort of one stone here, so it's not like a life and death ladder for Black. Whereas attaching to this corner can create like a very valuable situation in the upper right. So white might end up losing more in the upper right, even if white ends up winning this latter situation. And that's actually kind of what happened. So I think white should probably play another move here first. Probably this double hane looks more promising than just trying to pull this out like this. And so black played a very good move here at this Atari. And so white decided to just take the stone at the bottom, but I think white really has to extend here. Like letting black just capture this stone in the upper right is just so huge. It's this ponuki in the corner. Like we almost never want to allow this shape unless there's some like insane co-fight, and that's not really what's happening right here. So I think white really needed to pull out here and have some kind of sequence like this maybe. So I don't know if white wants to push this way and kind of like strengthen the black stones. It might be better just to play somewhere else entirely, something like this. I mean, right now, the really important area is probably right here on this right side, since black has such a large ponuki. So I might just play this approach here to try and break it up just a bit. So I'm not crazy about this move for black, because if we look at these two sides, like A and B, which side is more important? So I would say A is definitely more important because we have this super thick shape for black, so there's way more potential on the A side. On the B side, we have all these sort of low stones. We have these stones in the third line and even this white stone on the second line that's kind of poking in. So this side just isn't as valuable. So I would really want to try to play on the A side. So for example, I think a pincer like this would be great. So if white takes the corner, black would be happy to play the standard sequence. If white tries to resist by jumping, then black can calmly jump. But after this press, the important thing is we want to push and cut here. We don't want just to crawl along because that would give white what he wants, which is to press black down. But instead we want to push and cut and start a fight. Since black has so much thickness in the area, black could welcome some kind of fight like this and maybe even cut here or something. But I think white made a mistake with this slide. White should probably instead jump out with something like this or even this maybe, because black did a good job taking advantage by playing this good move on the outside. So this worked well. But after this move, I think black should probably follow up with this sort of standard sequence. This gives black a very thick outside. So I think this continuation looks good for black. Although the approach in the upper left is big as well. This attachment here, I'm not crazy about. I see Q players play this move like a lot, like all the time. And I've never quite understood why. Like this attachment is really like, let me just mark it here at A, is really sort of like a special situation move. And I'd say it really only has two uses. So one is if the white stones just need to make shape because they're in some weak situation. Like for example, if there was already like, I don't know, like some black stones here, so white just really needed to make shape, then attaching can be a good way of making shape. So that's reason number one. Reason number two would be to over-concentrate black. So let's say, I don't know, black had like some stones here or something. Then the sequence could make sense because black's thickness won't be that helpful because black has stones so nearby that white will gain more from the exchange. So it's really only for either one, for white to make shape, or B, to over-concentrate black. And I would say neither really apply in this situation, so I would just, just play a normal move like this or something. So black doesn't want to connect. Like black must Atari here. This Atari is just so huge. This should feel like an automatic move almost. Just to you can play it almost without thinking. Then the thinking choice is: do you want to connect here or here, or extend. So that's something to think about, but you definitely want to get this Atari in. It's just such a nice exchange for black. And for white's part, when black just connects, white definitely wants to extend here and take advantage of the fact that black did not Atari. So this is a good case of your opponent's good move is your good move. So yeah, this is a nice pincer. I might try kicking first to put a little bit more pressure on black, or on white. And in fact, this kick is so powerful that white might not even be able to extend. White might just have to play here immediately, and then black could just hane on top or underneath, or even start pressuring this way or something like that. Yeah, this dive into the corner is good. So I was kind of surprised that black tanuki'd away, because this 3-3 move is really great since black already has a move at L17. It's like a big move, and it's sente against white to live. So it's very big sente. So black should definitely play here and force white to try and make shape and get out somehow. You know, whatever it is. So both players are kind of playing away from the important area here, I think. Just in terms of shape, I would probably play here first. It might end up being the same, but it's just a bit more of a standard sequence. Although if black descends, then it could end up being the same thing. Although the problem is if black plays here second, then white might not play here. White will probably just turn. So black will kind of miss the chance to make this A-B exchange here. So I think black could have handled this situation a bit better. It would have been okay to sacrifice these two 15-line stones to get some shape on the outside. But when black extends and just lets white out, white ends up getting a bit too much. And so that's how black realized that he had to try to save these stones. So instead, I would just play here. I know white has like all these cutting points, but you'll notice that in these situations in Go, you like almost always have to just play here and block, as opposed to just like letting your opponent out, even if you have cutting points. This also should be like an almost like automatic feeling. And as you're moving into the single-digit cues, I think that will become more automatic. And so even if white cuts, black could just connect and just net like this. And so this would be the kind of idea. So black will sacrifice these two stones, but get a lot of thickness on the outside, and hopefully attack these two white stones. And so black had one more chance here, I think, to just hane here and kind of force white to take these two stones. But once black plays here, this creates this very broken shape. Like this E13 move should just feel very painful to black, just like automatically. And I think white should just come out here. And so this is how we ended up with the situation that I was talking about in the beginning of the lesson. So just to review this, we don't want to wedge as white. Or sorry, not that first. Just the cut here should be enough. Although actually that Kosumi might work too. But just limiting black's eye space should do it here. Although even after this, white played this sequence well, but we don't want to turn and give black this living shape. We want to reduce the shape, reduce the eye space from the outside. So that is usually the way to kill, and that's when you're reading, like that's the way you should check first. So black squirmed out of this one. So white got sente. So right now, I'd say black is doing quite well, just because of this Ponuki here being so powerful. White did get like a ton of thickness here, and so is going to make a lot of points here. But the shape is still open, so it's hard to say exactly how much white is going to get. And just shape-wise, I think the Kosumi to the 3-3 is probably the better move here. So I wonder if instead black plays something a little bit more aggressive, Like, let's put some pressure on white. So this Kosumi would prevent white from connecting underneath. So I think this is a good time to attack a little. And this ended up being a bit of an overplay for white. I think maybe instead white could try just to live like this, or even just to attach, or something like that. But this ends up being a very, very good result for black, because now this white stone is isolated and black is very strong. I don't think the connection here is important at p4. You would at least want to descend, but forget either of those. What if black just like turns here? I think that's kind of like almost game over for white. White's going to have to try to save this stone, but black might be able to a lot of damage to this white group. There's this really big weakness here. That's why we almost never see this like double Kama shape, and why I was saying to Kosumi before, just because this is such an issue. And so this is another overplay for white. I think white should just jump here. And if black takes the stone, then that's fine. White can just make a base. But white playing this way is creating these two really weak groups. And there's no reason to do that. And so at this point, I'd say black has a big advantage. And so black went on the attack here. And I would say white cannot afford to play moves like this. These stones are just too weak. So like white has to either jump here or like Kosumi here or something to try and save these stones. This isn't a good time to play away. And so once black played this stone, black had a really great lead. And we just had some end game here. I think black should attack from this direction to enlarge in this lower area. This sequence is probably a bit of an overplay for white. But honestly, I think it's just very hard for, although I think black could have attacked this way to take away this double sente move. But it's very hard for white to catch up. And so I think especially... so if instead of this, black had just turned here, then I think it would not have been a half-point game. It probably would have been a safer lead. And then especially here, like instead of this Kosumi, this Ogema down here, I think white should definitely turn here. Hana here. And this is kind of what I was saying. Like as you move into the single-digit queues, you'll realize like you almost never see these stones like head to head like this. Like almost always, like either white is going to Hane or black is going to extend, which is what happened in the game. So you almost never see both stones just kind of back to back like that. Like someone almost always wants to play a move, and whoever gets the first move is going to have a big advantage. So black actually had a pretty big advantage at this point. White managed to make up some points in the endgame, which is why it ended up being very, very close. But in conclusion, I would say white fell behind early by letting black have this Ponuki, but then white did a good job of attacking this group and getting some thickness on the outside, and so especially in the endgame, it ended up being very close. So I hope this review was helpful, and thanks for listening.